Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, we're going to be continuing our AFL 2023 3-game match reviews for the 2023 AFL season. And in today's video, we're going to be reviewing the first 3 games from round 10. Those games are Port Adelaide versus Melbourne, North Melbourne versus Sydney, and the Western Bulldogs versus Adelaide. Alright, so last night at the Adelaide Oval, we had a ripping contest between the Power and the Demons, or Nam versus, I believe it was like, Yurapati or something like I'm not quite sure how to pronounce Port Adelaide's name, but yeah, because I am not great at pronunciation, but I can do Melbourne's and it's Nam. But yeah, it was a thrilling contest anyway, though, putting names aside. Both sides also have nice new logos for Sir Doug Nicholls round, and what an opener it was to Sir Doug Nicholls round as well. Port Adelaide 11-4-80 to Melbourne 11-10-76. Port Adelaide won by 4 in the end. Both sides had a couple of little wasteful opportunities. Both sides gave away a couple of little silly free kicks here and there. But again, aside from that stuff, and this was quite a quality contest, I thought. It was 4th versus 2nd, I believe, or 2nd versus 4th going into the game. And yeah, both sides would have wanted the win here. And Port Adelaide got it. And I thought they looked really good in every term except for the third quarter. That's where the Demons did bring the comeback. Port Adelaide really deserved to be up by more at quarter time and at half time as well. They did the work over the first 2 quarters, couldn't quite do the damage. And as a result of a 14-point lead at half time, that, due to some inaccuracy as well, 5-7, that did inspire the Demons to come back and have a crack at this game. And have a crack they did. They kicked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals in a row. And yeah, that's where they took like a 20-point deficit or a 23-point deficit into what was about a 17-point lead of their own at 3-quarter time, or just before 3-quarter time. And then the final quarter, it's Melbourne only kicked the 1 goal. It's Port Adelaide that fight through and get the win in the end. AFL Fantasy 148 for Butters, who had a breakout game. 2 goals, 41 disposals, 6 marks, 3 tackles. 121 Fantasy for Rosie, who had 31 disposals, 5 marks, 5 tackles. 115 Fantasy for Houston, 108 for Oliver, 106 for Drew. Goals behind 2 Finlayson, Lord, Butters, Fritsch, McDonald. It was a wet contest as well, which did make things even more harder, and a lead was a lead in a wet game. 41 disposals for Butters, 33 for Houston, 31 for Rosie, 30 for Oliver. Marks now, 6 for Butters, Burton, Fritsch. Tackles, 12 for Burn-Jones, 10 for Drew. Hit-outs, 30 for Gawn, 22 for Lysette, 15 for Grundy, 1 Finlayson. Team stats now, where 61-48 inside 50s. Port Adelaide went inside 50 more times and were good when going inside 50. You want to beat the Demons, and there's a certain way you cannot let their defenders intercept, and Port Adelaide did a good job at stopping and not allowing that to happen. Clearances as well, 30-20 out of stoppage for the Power as well was their main strong point, 9-10 out of the centre in favour of the Demons. Port Adelaide lost contested possession by 8, and normally if you do beat the Demons in contested possession, you do win, but there are other ways around it, and they did smash the Demons by 29 in uncontested possessions. Marks, 70-41. They only allowed 41 marks for the game, only gave up and let the Ds have 41, which is quite insane, and they took 70 of their own, still 70-12 marks inside 50 as well. But when it's a low-scoring, sloppy, wet game, marking can be taken out of the equation because it is a wet and slippery ball. Port Adelaide led for just over half the game, 18-6 tackles inside 50. But what a game it was to kick off Sir Doug Nicholls round. The Power prevailed by 4. First game today at Marvel Stadium was between North Melbourne and Sydney, and it was North Melbourne 14-6-90, Sydney 14-9-93. Sydney won by 3 in the end. It was one of the most bizarre games you'll ever see, and it was a close game. Sydney, look, I really can't say they played this game well or anything against the struggling North Melbourne outfit. They struggled themselves at times. Despite being the better of the sides for the game, North Melbourne still hung around, and due to an interchange problem, an interchange breach where they had an extra interchange, it gave Sydney the winning goal in the last minute. And that is what cost it. But in the end, though, it was Sydney that dominated the first 2 quarters. I felt they were much the better side. After North Melbourne took a long time to get going, they finally did at the end of the first term. Second term took a little while for the first goal to come, and then Sydney started to respond with a few more later on. In the third quarter, This is where it went goal for goal. Sydney still owned the quarter, but North Melbourne was still hanging around. They were still responding every time. It was 5-4 in the term. So North Melbourne did win it due to a late one at the end of the term. Including that late goal at the end of the term, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, or 4 in a row to start the last quarter, which was going to be their only 4 for the term after holding a 16-point lead North, and then the Swans kicked the last 3 of the game to ultimately bring it home. Their only 3 for the term, but boy, this was an exciting and a big game. 121 fantasy for Scott, 115 for Simpkin and Warner, 113 for Parker, 112 for Sheasel, 106 for Goulden, 105 for Coleman Jones. Goals behind, 3 goals for Franklin, still showing he has what it takes. 2 goals for Sheasel, who was playing in the forward line in this game, still got 25 disposals, as well as he was playing a little bit around the footy. 2 goals for Larkey, McLean, Coleman, Jones, Simpkin, and Laddams. Disposals, 33 for Scott, 31 for Warner. Marks now 9 for Franklin and Hayward. Tackles, 9 for Wardlaw, who was on debut, 8 for Greenwood. Hitouts, 45 for Goldstein, 24 the debutant for the Swans, McAndrew, 8 for Coleman Jones, 7 for Laddams, 2 for McLean. Team stats now, where North Melbourne actually, believe it or not, went inside 50 more times than Sydney, 55-49. We do know that Sydney are lacking some players in their defensive half. Wow. In terms of hitouts, 53-29 in favour of North, which is not surprising, but clearances, 47-27 in favour of North Melbourne, 18-8 centre clearances in favour of North Melbourne, 29-19 stoppage clearances in favour of North Melbourne. This is a young midfield which North Melbourne have, going up against like a midfield with Goulden and Parker and Warner in it, and they got absolutely smashed, the Swans, which is quite a surprise. 89-85 marks in favour of North, 7-15 contested in favour of the Swans, and the Swans did lead for 3/4 of this game, and North were just happy to hang around, but after they did dominate in some stats, that bizarre interchange, which we can go back and actually have a little look at here, you can see their 76-75 is what in the end cost them the game. Now into the final game, this 3-game match reviews, which quite easily was the most boring game. Western Bulldogs 11-19-85 smashed Adelaide 5-10-40 down at Mars Stadium, their first home game for the year. They won by 45 in the end. And Adelaide, they were in this game for a while, but yeah, they just didn't kick a big enough score and just weren't at the same level as the Western Bulldogs to even contend in this game, really. 4 goals to 1 in the first term, with the Dogs having the breeze is what set them off and running, and from there it even looked like they weren't really going to be stopped. The Crows had the breeze in the second quarter, 1 goal 6 to the Dogs, and the Crows probably did win the quarter, to say the least, but still, though, they weren't really good enough when, like, the Dogs still looked way better in that second quarter. Third quarter and final term, they continued on their ways and absolutely smashed the Crows out of the park. And this is a good performance here from the Western Bulldogs. They were just so much better with ball in hand. 131 fantasy for Laird. We'll go 130 for Dale, 121 for Smith, who was very important with his 37 disposals. 121 fantasy for English, 117 for Dale and McRae. Goals behind, 2 goals for Scott, Rochelle, McRae. Those are the only multiple goal scorers. Now we'll go to disposals. 37 for Smith, 36 for Dale, 34 for Laird, 33 for Libba, 30 for Daniel, 30 for Bontempelli, 26 for McRae. Go to marks, now 9 for Dale. Tackles, 10 for Laird, 7 for Smith, English and McRae. Hit out 63 for O'Brien, who absolutely smashed English, 29, but when it did come to moving around the ground, English did win that part. 9 for Himmelberg, 3 for Norton and Lobb. Team stats now, where the Dogs absolutely smashed the Crows in disposals and inside 50s, 54-41. Clearances, believe it or not, Adelaide won 39-50 clearances, 6-14 out of the centre, so they didn't actually get smashed by the Dogs' clearances, which is what they do so well, but they did get smashed in other areas, including like turnovers, whereas 57-73, the Dogs had way more contested footy, 164-129, 231-154 uncontested possessions as well, took more marks as well, led for most of this game, and once they got off and running, it really didn't look like they were going to be stopped. Adelaide only made 42 interchanges for the game. Very, very surprising stuff, but yeah, it was a very, very, very big win there for the Western Bulldogs. There's not a lot to say about this game. They won by 45 in the end, and they are looking really, really, really good this year. And after that game, even though they didn't win by overly a lot, their midfield was right back to their best, and they were inaccurate 11-19. They were very good in this game, and they did look like they were playing good footy. Apart from inaccuracy, that aside, they just absolutely dominated the Crows. Half-time at the Fremantle versus Geelong game at the moment is the Dockers by 9 at half-time. That is a big game coming up, and big finish for that game coming up, and could it be the Cats' second loss in two losses in 2 weeks if they lose that game. Q clash tonight at the game between the Lions and the Suns, and Dreamtime at the G is the rest of today's footy action. 2 very big games, and hopefully 2 very good games as well. Sunday's footy action is also looking quite interesting, believe it or not. 18th versus 17th, Hawthorn versus West Coast, Carlton versus Collingwood, the big rivalry, and then also the Giants and the Saints to finish it off with. There is potentially an upset brewing. There could be an upset there, and the Saints have got to be on high alert. And now we'll go to the live ladder as well. So if the Cats lose, that'll keep them on 20 points, and it'll put Fremantle just outside the 8. Probably won't jump in. They'd have to win by a fair bit more to do so, but that can at least put them right within touching distance of the top 8, as you can see there. And then, still got some other big games to go with sides like Essendon and Gold Coast. And obviously, that Fremantle result is quite big as well. But anyway, though, thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Send you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. Bye, everyone. Flame for the out.